Hello boys, and girls, and welcome to the second video in my alt-right series. In the first video we took a look at the subject that shall not be uttered, race realism, and now I've decided to check out one of, if not the main keystone of the alt-right, Identitarianism. Now, while I've stated it in my first video, I feel the need to reiterate. In this video, I will state the facts. Now, the alt-right is something new to me, while the movement itself isn't new to me. The research I put into these videos is the first time I have decided to look into the various topics that surround the alt-right. So, if I have missed something important that pertains to the topic of this video, feel free to tell me what I missed in the comments. The main objective of these videos is to lay out the alt-right in a non-biased manner. Now, at the end of each video, I'll give my own personal opinion on the topic at hand. If you have a problem with my opinion, feel free to put your argument in the comments below. And by argument, I mean actual arguments. You know, something of substance. Not an 18-paragraph diatribe that can be boiled down to, you're wrong because I feel that you're wrong. Feelings is not a fucking argument, and I'm already knee-deep in the Warhammer 40k Horus Heresy series, so I'm pretty set for reading material. Now, with that being said, in the words of Mickey Knox,
if you don't mind, well, let's roll the dice, right?
So what does the word identitarianism mean? According to the dictionary, identitarianism is the set of ideas arising from an ontology of identity. In other words, if there's an identity, race, religion, sexuality, nationality, and ethnicity, 9 times out of 10, there is an identitarian-based movement set around that. Now, however, for this video, we will be looking into the identitarian movements of Europe and America, movements such as Britain First, Generation Identity, and most importantly, the alt-right. In doing so, we will be looking at the arguments, objectives, objections, and reasons for being a movement. So in order to get to the root of identitarianism, one must first look at some statistics. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, it is expected that by 2060, native-born non-Hispanic whites will be a minority. The same can be said for Europe. Due to the migrant crisis in Europe, the white majority of countries such as Germany, France, Austria, and Sweden are being phased out at an even quicker rate than over here in America. These statistics are especially scary when you take into consideration that the majority of illegal immigrants coming into America and the majority of migrants going into Europe are not willing to assimilate. As a matter of fact, they give zero fucks when it comes to assimilating to their new countries. These facts, and are willing to not assimilate, have led to a rise in crime and a rise in Islamic terrorism. Now, what does the government do to prevent this from happening? What does a government in charge of protecting its own citizens, in charge of making sure that everything is safe, what do? They bring in more migrants. They create sanctuary cities. Because nothing says prevention like throwing napalm on a fucking bonfire. Now, some decide to ignore these problems. And they keep claiming that more migrants and more illegals and more sanctuary cities is a good thing. It's cultural enrichment. However, those who have taken note of these problems and understand that said problems are in fact problems are going to call a clusterfuck a clusterfuck. So what is the goal of these identitarian movements? Well, according to those on the left, it's to start up the Fourth Reich and genocide all non-whites. However, when one goes to the horse's mouth, they find a completely different set of objectives.
Alors, Génération Identitaire, c'est un mouvement politique, un mouvement jeune, c'est un mouvement qui a été créé par des jeunes et fait pour des jeunes. C'est un mouvement qui a pour vocation de faire vivre l'identité dans les régions, dans les villes, en France, en Europe. C'est un mouvement qui mobilise réellement la jeunesse. C'est cette importance de se réunir et que la jeunesse, c'est le futur d'un pays. Et que si la jeunesse se mobilise, que la jeunesse y croit, eh bien le pays ira mieux. Et voilà, c'est quelque chose d'important de se mobiliser en tant que jeune puisqu'on est l'avenir. Et de défendre notre culture. Je pense que dans tous les pays du monde, chaque peuple aspire à cela et je vois pas en quoi ce serait offensant de vouloir...
We want to stop what we call the great replacement of the European populations by mass immigration, by Islamization, and so we are fighting for total closure of our borders for non-European and Islamic immigration to Europe. That's our main focus.
There seems to be a lot of people generally.
This goal, in my opinion, is reasonable, especially when you consider what is going on in the West, the entire West in general. So, in conclusion, while researching this subject, I couldn't help but recall the days in which I would write movements like Generation Identity, Britain First, and the alt-right off as racist, xenophobic neo-Nazis. Whenever the concept of white identity was brought up in conversation, Klansmen and parades of Wehrmacht soldiers marching in their shiny jackboots were the first images to pop into my head. Nowadays, however, I look back to the days in which I was a leftist and recognize a time in which I, like many others, had been basically indoctrinated to think that way. Now, while I still have some reservations with some of the more extreme elements of groups like Britain First, Generation Identity, and the alt-right, and I'm by no means a 1488er, I myself, however, do believe wholeheartedly that Western values are important values, created and honed by white Europeans. We should be defending these values, the values that bestowed human rights, the values that people have died and fought for. Despite what people on the far left say, Western culture is the best, where some cultures are willing to kill people in a brutal fashion for something as benign as lifestyle choices in the modern age. The West has praised the idea of individual liberties. Now, I know someone is going to dredge out the past by invoking slavery and Jim Crow. To those who do, I have some food for thought. Would you be willing to kill the children of John Wayne Gacy because of the sins of their father? Furthermore, every race and tribe has been put through or participated in some form of hardship at one point or another in history. Instead of dwelling on the past, humanity should look at the here and now and try to find ways to improve the future. Because, let's be honest here, there are no black slaves alive today, and to use them as a crutch to justify a certain attitude is quite frankly fucked up. So my final thoughts on identitarianism are as follows. Many people question the rise of white identitarians without actually understanding it. Because in all honesty, the majority of those who ask that question are the ones who created this movement. Ever since 2008, these types of people have constantly berated whites, from the claims of a fictitious form of privilege to outright racism mixed with a goddamn kiloton of hypocrisy and double standards. These things have created a monster to the left's Dr. Frankenstein. When groups like La Raza and the Black Panther Party are allowed to rant without repercussion about how much they want to kill Whitey. When whites are browbeaten over showing pride in their heritage and labeled with the scarlet R for racist, when talking about genociding an entire race of people is a socially acceptable thing, on top of the phasing out of the white majority in white countries, you can bet your bottom fucking dollar that whites will respond by starting up a white identitarian movement. While some may see these groups as nothing more than groups of neo-Nazis or white supremacists, this assessment can't be further from the truth. Granted, they share similar arguments and talking points with neo-Nazis and white supremacists. Nobody in these movements is advocating that their race is the superior race, nor is anyone advocating for the genocide of non-whites. The only thing that these groups are advocating is the preservation of white culture and white identity in white countries. Hey guys, Red Triangle here. Welcome to the end of the video. I'm glad you made it. Anyway, if you like this video, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and most importantly, comment below. Not because I want my stuff to hit the front page of YouTube, but because I genuinely have an interest in what people have to say. Thanks for watching, and peace.